All right, everyone, welcome to the Honors College Lecture Series today. Our guest speaker is Miss Laura Clippard, whom most of you should know. And if you don't know, you should meet her because she handles our fellowships, international scholarships, and all kinds of cool stuff that you can do. So I will turn it over to Miss Clippard, who is also the Buchanan advisor. So some of you may know her as that as well. So welcome, Laura, and you may go ahead.
Well, thank you everybody for being here. I love working in the Honors College. I have been here for 13 years and I like the advising part, but I also like the opportunity to help students connect to international and national opportunities. So I'm going to try to not just be listy and, just tell you about scholarships because there's just too many to mention. There's probably around 200, 250 national opportunities. I try to list the most prevalent ones on the website, but I would encourage you to learn more. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to share kind of the layout and the opportunities on the website. So let's see, somebody, yes. Can you all see this? Caleb, can you give me a yes?
I can see it.
Okay, thank you. So this is the Honors College website, and this is the fellowship. And so when I go to the home web page, it tells you there's an introduction video. There's a way to make an appointment with me. So you want to talk to me about a national opportunity, you can click that button to make an appointment. There's also a list of winners on here. So we have exciting news. We've had a student win the Goldwater. We've had 2 students win the Fulbright to Spain so far to teach English. We've had the students win the CLS. But you can click on here and you can see the names of the students who have won. We haven't updated it this year, but there's quite a few winners every year from MTSU. The other thing that you can look at is you can see, you can search by type of scholarship. So we have a gigantic list under additional resources. But here we've tried to break it down a little bit. So if you know that you're going to study abroad, you should take a few minutes and look at these scholarships. Postgraduate opportunities can include things like teaching English or working overseas, and there's a list for that. Doing research overseas, internships, how to pay for graduate school. There's also a special category for research that you can start as an undergraduate or how to pay for graduate school. And then we have special categories like community service, public policy, and that type of thing. And then under additional resources, there's this gigantic list that you can look at. Like I said, I think the biggest thing is that students find the website a little intimidating. I mean, there's a list of 200 things to look for. So kind of my role is to break things down. So if you would like to just meet with me, I can't promise to always find everybody an opportunity, but I can try to match you with some good options. I have a PowerPoint that I'm going to do just so I can talk about the different types of opportunities that we have. So let me use my super text skills here and get the PowerPoint started. So I'm assuming you can see that. The first thing I would tell you is MTSU students really, really win this. So your fellow classmates, some of them are honor students, some of them are not, but they get opportunities to teach English overseas. They get funding for science. They get study abroad scholarships. The UDAL is an environmental scholarship, and the critical language is a language scholarship. So we have MTSU students win. And usually what I advise students to do is you want to keep track of your leadership, not just what clubs you're in, but what you did within those clubs, those leadership opportunities that made a difference. There is a movie called It's a Wonderful Life. And in the movie, It's a Wonderful Life, he finds out that because he wasn't there, all these great things didn't happen. So how did you make a difference? It doesn't have to be gigantic. What are the little ways that you made a difference? And so you want to try to get involved, whether it's remotely or in person, keep up your grades, and you want to ask people about different opportunities. And I usually tell students that more is not necessarily better. If you are the president of 10 organizations, then you may not have done a whole lot. So I always tell students to think about, what do you care about? What is interesting to you? What is meaningful to you? And that type of thing. And so pursue what you're passionate about. Letters of recommendation. I'm not going to pick on Susan, but I've asked her this question before. And the question was, what is the shortest amount of time that someone asked you to write a recommendation? I think her answer was 1 day or either same day. So you don't want to do that. You want to ask people who do letters of recommendation for you, you want to give them a month, okay? You want to give them a list of activities, leadership items, and you want to tell them what the heck you're applying for. So you want them to be able to craft a strong, helpful letter to help you win this. If you only give people like a week's notice or less than a week, you're probably going to get a more generic letter. The other thing that our office can help with, and we also try to partner with the Writing Center, is when you apply for an international or national opportunity, you usually have to write a personal statement. And I can tell you from experience that students do not like doing this, especially my STEM majors. They'd rather do lots of other things than write about themselves. But when you craft a personal statement, you really have to dig deep. So I will take the medical field as an example. So if you want to be a doctor, if you write down, I want to be a doctor because I want to help people, that is considered very generic because that's what doctors do. So you have to dig deeper. How did you get interested in medicine? If you job shadowed, what were some experience that you saw? Who were the mentors that encouraged you? So you really want to dig deep, and your personal statement should be a deep reflection of who you are. It should be unique. Usually I tell students that applying for a national opportunity is time consuming, and students are usually caught off guard by this. And what I mean by that is they have jobs, they have family that they have to take care of, and they have classes. And then if you add a fellowship, that's another thing, but it can lead to personal growth. A lot of my students tell me that the essays that they write for the national applications, they use for graduate school and different things. So let's start here, and we'll take a poll probably at the end, but I would encourage students to apply for something called Eureka, and hopefully some of you have. Eureka is money from MTSU, from the Undergraduate Research Center, anywhere from $500 to $3,000, that pays for you to do a creative or research project. They have them summer, fall, and spring. Jamie Burris runs this program, and you can quote me on this. She is the world's nicest person, okay? If you don't have someone to do research with, she'll help you find that person. You can also try to find someone to do research with by talking to the department, looking on the website. She also has a list on the Eureka website of mentors, and she's really hands-on and really helpful. So if you want to do a research or creative project, you want to apply for a Eureka, she is your go-to woman. I've taken the scholarships and broken them down into types. This is just a sampling. These are not all of the opportunities. This is a sampling of things that you can get involved with. So the biggest question I guess April Goers get, Judy Albakari gets, is how the heck do you pay for study abroad? Okay. One thing that you can pay for your study abroad is your current financial aid. So if you are getting a Pell Grant, or you're getting lottery, or you're getting a presidential or trustee scholarship, depending on the semester that you select, say that you select fall or spring, you probably can use those. If you are an honors college student, which you all are because you're in the lecture series, you should apply for money from us. And then there's national opportunities. There's also scholarships available within the colleges and departments. The critical language scholarship does not pay for a study abroad. It's its own study abroad. And essentially it pays students to go overseas and learn languages. It is fully funded during the summer, about 20 hours of language study. And right now it's remote, but it's supposed to be in person next summer. And the languages are listed right there. So some of the languages, like Japanese, require 2 years of study prior to that summer, but some of them, like Hindi, Turkish, don't require anything. The biggest thing with this scholarship is you have to be able to connect it to your professional goals. So let's say you want to learn Hindi because you want to work in Bollywood because you are in recording industry. That's great. Or maybe you want to learn Japanese because you want to work in business. So they're really open to all majors. The CLS usually opens in September. It's due in November. We had 2 CLS winners this year, and it's really a big deal. So these are national competitions. So we're competing against Harvard and Yale and all the different schools, and we have MTSU students who win. The Gilman is a great scholarship for paying for study abroad. You do have to have a Pell Grant, and you do have to pick a study abroad program that's at least 3 weeks. At this point, they are paying for remote study abroads, which is a different concept. And they're paying for people that are in the country for a little while and doing some study outside the country, maybe a week in classes before they go. So the study abroad stuff, there's a lot of good options for paying for that. But if you have a Pell Grant, I would recommend the Gilman. And the Fulbright is probably my favorite program. So I'm going to wave my hands around when I say that. So the Fulbright mission is world peace. And I am doing a Fulbright workshop today at 5 o'clock. If you'd like to attend, just email me and I'll send you the registration link. I'll check it shortly before I log in. But the Fulbright is where you go overseas 8 to 10 months following your graduation. You can do research, you can do independent study, you can attend graduate school, you can do creative stuff, you can teach English as an assistant. And the purpose of the Fulbright is to promote mutual understanding, goodwill between different countries. They pay for your airfare, they pay for stipend. Depending on where you go, sometimes you can bring your spouse and or children with you. It really just depends. Each country gets to set their own requirements for the Fulbright. And usually what I tell students is just like you wouldn't apply for one job, you shouldn't apply for one overseas or teaching opportunity. So for example, I have a student who's waiting to see if she gets it, but she wants to teach in South Korea or in Japan with the JET program. So she chose 2 options to apply for. But if you want to teach English as an assistant overseas, you don't necessarily have to be an English major. But you might want to consider Peace Corps, or you might want to consider the JET or the TALK, which is in Korea. So I have a huge list of fellowships associated with going overseas, which I'm happy to share. There's also political or service. I always tell students I'm looking for a Truman Scholar, and a Truman Scholar pays $30,000 for graduate school, and it should be someone who's argumentative. They have strong opinions, they want to change things, but they've actually gone out to try to do that. They're looking for someone who's been involved on campus, in government, in the community. They pay for master's or PhD and usually apply your junior year. looking for leadership and how you've made a difference. The Udall Scholarship is an environmental scholarship, or it's related to Native American healthcare. Again, we had Destiny Seaton who won this a couple years ago, along with a CLS. So we do have students that win, and it helps pay for your undergraduate. There's also tons of math opportunities. So we had a student who won the Goldwater this year, and that's a really big deal. So it means that we have students who have been recognized here as top scholars. So it is for sophomores or juniors who want a PhD and they want to work professionally doing research. And there's a whole application process involved with that. But again, it's very supported. We also have students who apply for NSF REUs. So for the NSF REUs, it's through the National Science Foundation. I know at least 4 or 5 students that got these this year. And basically they pay $4,000 to $7,000. And you do research with a group of 10 to 15 students on a specific project. There's about 600 options for these. So there's a lot of different options for the REUs. Whoops. And it's at this point, you couldn't apply for this summer, but if you'll still hear summer of 22, it would be a great option. There's also minority health and disparities, which is research in third world countries. And we've had students get this. And there's funding for graduate school in the science area. And it's a lot of money. I think, yeah, it's $30,000 plus $12,000, which is quite a bit. So I'm hoping to work with at least 3 candidates on this in the next coming year. There's other opportunities. I don't want to just list things. There's the Rhodes, which pays for school at Oxford. There's the Gate Cambridge, which pays for schooling at Cambridge University. There's the Marshall, which can be used at any school in the UK. So there's a lot of different opportunities for students. We also have Phi Kappa Phi. You have to be invited to join, but we nominate at least, we put forward 1 student every year to apply for this, and we've had students win the last few years for Phi Kappa Phi. And Dr. Phillips, if you have questions, he serves on the national committee. And usually what I tell students is there's value in the process. And so, for example, I applied for a Fulbright I guess it's been about 5 years ago, and I was rejected. So I waited about 2 or 3 years and I reapplied, and I got a 2-week Fulbright to Japan. And so I learned a lot from that process, even the one that I didn't get the first time around. So you can't always win every award, but I try to make it a process and a learning process for you. And additionally to that, Ms. Lyons, Dean Bile, Dr. Phillips, the whole Honors College helps read applications and help students be as strong as they can be. And I think there's a real value in the process. And I always tell students that life is a journey, not a destination. So I'm going to pause here for questions, and then I may go back over a few other things. But what can our fellowship office do to help you? We can help you sort through all of the different information. So we can help you figure out which fellowships or opportunities are good for you. We can assist you with those essays. We can assist you with reviewing, practice interviews, and that kind of thing. Now, I will say that I can't promise that I can find an exact match for every student, because sometimes a wonderful student will come in my office or we'll meet remotely, and I'll look at their resume and I won't have anything at the time, but I'll keep it on file and I'll try to find something as time goes on. Sometimes a student walks into my office and there's 3 or 4 opportunities. It really, really just depends on that. So I think I'm going to go back to the PowerPoint in a minute, but I think I'm going to pull the chat up, and you can either unmute yourself or you can throw a question in the chat. Susan said that your group's pretty good about asking questions and not shy, so that's good. So do you all have any questions?
I heard you mention scholarships for graduate school, and I've recently been accepted into a law school. And I didn't know if that is considered y'all's graduate school or if it's for MTSU's graduate school only, if that makes sense.
Yes. The graduate school is probably the trickiest area of fellowships, okay, because the graduate school stuff is really, really specific. So there is Phi Kappa Phi, there's a bunch of STEM fellowships, and beyond that, you kind of just have to dig around on the graduate school's website. So if you want to email, I have a list that I can send you and some resources. But the short answer is graduate school is funding is hard. It is hard.
I expected that, but I just wanted to make sure I wasn't, overlooking anything. So I thought I'd ask.
I mean, if you want to, I can send you the document that I have. It has a few national resources, but usually the best funding for graduate school is the college itself. So to try to get a GA or a TA and that kind of thing. And again, sometimes there are specific scholarships within a school. And if there are a lot, I know this is unfair, but there's more STEM scholarships for graduate school than say for English, which shouldn't be that way, but that's kind of how it pans out.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions? So let me ask you all some questions. So how many of you, I know that we are in the middle of COVID and that study abroads keep getting canceled. So let's just acknowledge that. But if things open back up, how many of you want to do either a short-term or long-term study abroad? And then where do you want to go? Why don't you throw your countries in there in the chat and I'll just read them. Maybe you don't want to study abroad. France. I got one. Yeah,
no one wants to go anywhere.
No one wants to go anywhere. Just have to look.
I want to go anywhere I can go.
Yes. Oxford. Okay. Yeah. So usually that's the biggest question I get. I would go anywhere. Yeah. Somebody said I would go anywhere. Is how do I pay for a study abroad? And the best thing, what I would recommend for study abroad is starting about 6 months early looking for scholarships, because you want to access the honors college scholarships, the scholarships from education abroad, and then some scholarships are very specific. So if you select an ISA, which is a study abroad program, they have scholarships that they pay for. Oh, vet school, that's nice. So the study abroad things, and there's also a lot of opportunities after graduation, and they're not just for English majors or political science majors or international relations majors, although all those people are usually interested. So if you're in STEM, communication, history, the Fulbright and all those other options are good for you as well. Somebody said they're graduating. Some of the fellowships, there's some that you can do in graduate school. So the Critical Language Scholarship is language learning. They accept graduate students. The Fulbright also accepts graduate students. And so there are some that are particular to graduate students. It doesn't pay for your graduate school, but you can apply. I love the Fulbright. So if you are, there's all kinds of Fulbright opportunities. You can apply for a Fulbright immediately graduating from MTSU. You can also, if you go to another graduate school, which a lot of you may do, you can also apply for a Fulbright while you're in a master's or PhD program. And you can do research overseas. So I think professionally, that's a very good thing to do. So yeah. Italy, yeah, I think those are all great places. Other questions?
Anybody
I have a
go to
question.
Washington?
Yeah, what?
Go ahead, Sierra.
I'm sorry. I was just going to ask if we are able to work during this summer because I have like I don't have much extra time to work with the Honors College on an essay during the semester. So I'm wondering if you guys are available to help with applications over the summer.
Yes. Yeah, I'm the main one, and I'm gone here and there during the summer, but I work with people all during the summer on applications and essays as well. So,
Okay,
yes.
great. And
I
are
think,
there,
go ahead.
I'm sorry, you go ahead.
I was going to say summer is a great time to also kind of look at these opportunities because there's usually less class stuff going on. But go ahead.
I was going to say, is there less or like a good amount of STEM opportunities for the like December break? Or no?
What do you mean a research during the, not
Like
as
the
many.
winter?
Yeah,
winter
not
break?
as many.
Okay.
They're doing something really different in the study abroad world. I don't know if it's going to stick around or not. I think, Emma, you went to a workshop about this, but they're having remote internships with Study Abroad Office. So essentially you gain international experience while you're at home by working with an international company. So that might be an opportunity as well that you might check into. I don't
I'm
know
actually doing one this summer.
Oh, you are? Tell us about that.
It's through the University of Minnesota. They've never worked with that school before, so I'm like the first one. So it's kind of an interesting, but it's really easy application. And then I wouldn't say you're guaranteed like a placement, but they really want you to participate. So you'll get placed with something, and you just writing your cover letter like what you're interested in. So I can only be matched and will get credit if it's something biological because I'm a biology major. So you have to make sure it matches up and get it approved, which is hard to do because you have to try to get it approved before you're placed. But you can maneuver around that and kind of submit your application without your advisor knowing, wink, wink, and then get it approved.
And Sierra, for you and all the other STEM majors, I have a link on the website and I can send it to you, or you can, and it shows all the different opportunities for graduate and undergraduate research. So I can't list them all, but there's a lot of different ones. There's a national database that the NSF has put together. So that's a good resource for you. So if you just want to shoot me an email, I can connect you with that database and you can play around with it.
Okay. Would you be willing to sit down with a student and work with like recommend which ones you think would be best suited for their
Sure, I can go through it with you. Yeah, that's part of what I can do. Yeah.
Okay, great.
You can.
It's just a lot overwhelming.
It is very overwhelming. If you want to meet with me during the summer, you can either email me your times that you're free, or you can use that link in the system and schedule with me. Either way is okay.
Okay, great. And I'll be graduating probably December 2022, but I can apply for summer 2022, correct?
Yes. There's lots of cool stuff out there.
Okay,
there
great.
is. There is. Oh, Eureka. Okay. So how many people here have received a Eureka Grant? If you have received a Eureka Grant, put your name and say, I have received a Eureka Grant. Katrina Scott. So, okay, quite a few. So, So I guess the biggest thing I would tell you is sometimes I have students come in my office and they'll say, I have to help care for my grandmother, or I have this, or I have that, and I can't really travel. I know some of these opportunities are based around travel. Eureka is not, okay? So I love Eureka because it can be big or it can be small, okay? And so I wave my hands around and I can jump up and down in my office for emphasis. But if you are going to do research or you're going to do a creative project, why wouldn't you want to get paid for it, right? So the Eureka grants that are available, they have small grants as small as $500, where you do about 50 hours of research over the course of a semester, and they have larger ones. So if you're going to do a research or creative project of some sort, it's a professional entry, something for your CV, but on a basic level, why not get paid for that? So I don't want to pick on anybody in particular, but why doesn't somebody unmute themselves and tell us what you did for Eureka and what the process was?
You mean the application process?
Yes,
Or,
yeah, the application process and what you did, Charlotte.
So
think-
what I did first was I actually went to find who my mentor was, and I chose someone within my field, so Dr. McDaniel in the English department. And I guess the biggest thing I had to do was decide, what do I plan to use this on? Do I want to do research? Do I want to do creative? And you got to kind of weigh your options of what's your strength and what are your weaknesses. My project actually is both, because I'm spending the first half doing research on literary techniques, and then the creative process is going to be the second half. The application itself, I had to submit a proposal, which involved, the background information of your qualifications. It involved giving the kind of what the labor work is going to be. What am I going to be doing, I guess is the best way to put it. And I know the biggest struggle for me was looking at who was on the committee and realizing none of them were in the English department. So you have to write and complete your application in a sense where you make it so that anyone can understand. Anyone can kind of see where you're going and why it may be relevant. I think the biggest thing for me was I am starting my thesis project using the Eureka. And so I'm starting the whole process, and let's see, what else did I have to do? I had to, there's a timeline that you have to do. You kind of have to give an idea of what you're going to be doing. They offer a stipend for supplies and materials and travel as well. I'm not going to be using any of it, but they offer up to $300, and you would have to kind of explain why you need it and things like that.
Cool. And I saw something on the chat, and she says that she's in a place where she can't talk, but she did Eureka for the dairy farm. That sounds really interesting. Yes. And she said that you pretty much covered everything else. So that's good. Yeah. Again, I really encourage you, because I talk about a lot of national opportunities and this and that, and, but Eureka is something I think that is doable for honor students. I mean, Charlotte used her Eureka in a very deliberate way. She applied the semester before she started her thesis, so that she had some money that way. And some experience that she could tie into her thesis. So that was great. Anybody else want to talk about Eureka? You don't have to. I'm just giving you the opportunity.
I have a question if they can, or you can answer.
Sure.
I was just wondering, so I know that you said that you can apply to get some funding for your honors research. So how would I'm planning on also getting into some biology or cancer research with the professor, but I haven't even, spoken to the professor yet. So I'm like wondering how far along, I guess, in the process and setup do I need to be before I can apply?
There's different ways to approach it, and I would invite the students to jump in on this. So for some students, they want to get a little research experience in before they start their thesis. So they might apply for a small Eureka grant before the start of their thesis. They don't like you to do the large ones, but the smaller Eureka grants, they're usually okay with you being enrolled in your thesis classes. But one way you could do Eureka is you could start your thesis in the spring, apply for Eureka, do your research over summer, and then finish up your thesis in the fall. So you could apply for a larger 3,500 Eureka grant during the summer. So you can tie it to when you're doing your research, or you can do it before you start your research. The biggest question I usually get is, how the heck do you find faculty to do this? And there's different ways to do that. One way, I think that Charlotte already knew Dr. McDaniel. So to approach a professor that you've had in class, that someone you're comfortable with, and talk to them about applying for Eureka. You can also look on the websites of your department and look and see what, I think biology is really good about this, and chemistry is. The professors, if you click on their name, it tells you what they're doing. You can also reach out to Jamie Burris, okay? She runs the Eureka program, and anytime I've sent a student to her, she's always asking them, do you know who you want to do research with? Do you need me to help you find somebody? So those are kind of some quick thoughts on that.
May you please send her email?
Yes, I usually get that. Yes, Charlotte says Dr. Burris is amazing. I would agree. Yeah, let me just throw it in the chat.
Thank you.
Sorry, I was gonna, if I can, do you mind if I
Go ahead.
add to what you said? Okay, so I was gonna say, I did Eureka this past year, and I would also have a couple of recommendations, because I think you said you wanted to get involved in like cancer research on campus, is that right?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, yeah, so I know quite a few of the professors in the biology department, but my number one like recommendation would be start now, because the professors that have been doing this research have been doing it for like their lives. So, and that doesn't make much sense until you think about like, there are people trying to get into labs all the time. And they have to tell people no, like every day, because that's something they've dedicated their lives to. And so they're not just going to hand it to someone that they don't know. So like, even if you don't know what you want to do right now, what I would say is adding on to what she had just said already is on the biology website where the faculty is listed, it tells you what they do. And if that sounds interesting to you, pick like your top, I would pick your top 3 that are the most interesting to you. And then if you scroll down at the bottom, there's a section that says publications. And it lists their publications that they've done and the dates that they were released. So what I would do is pick 1 or 2 of their publications, print it off. And if the topic is interesting to you, of course, and then read through it and come up with a list of questions that you have about that project. It doesn't matter if they did it 20 years ago or yesterday, like just come up with some questions that you have about that process, and don't be afraid to ask them questions. Like if you don't know what it means, that's totally fine. The important point is that you have the guts to show up in their office and ask them the question, not what the question is. So make a list of questions about that publication, and then that's how you start meeting with them and start building that relationship before you ever ask to get into their lab, because a lot of them are not just going to let you in because you want to do research. They're going to want to know who you are and know that they can trust you with something they've dedicated their life to. So I think the sooner that you start with that, the better. And then, as far as the Eureka Grant, they have different levels, but a lot of times once you have a relationship with them and you start doing research, Eureka is going to come after that happens. And usually they will tell you, like they'll let you know if Eureka is something you should think about for whatever you're working on, and you can bring it up to them. But usually they'll kind of, they'll be like, yeah, this could work with Eureka. We should think about applying for that. And that's kind of how I got into it. But my situation's a little bit different because I've been in a lab for a while. But my main advice would just be, pick 2 or 3 that are super interesting. You're not signing your name on it right now on what you're doing. Just pick something that's interesting. Show that you can independently come up with questions about their work, that you care, that you're interested, and that you're independent. They don't have to stand there and tell you what to do next, that you can actually think on your own on the topic. And that is really going to hook a professor on a student like that can show all of those things. And don't be late to your appointment. The last thing is like, don't be late. be on time and do all those things, and they're really going to be interested in you. And then, hopefully, best case scenario, like you have options because you've done this with a couple different professors and they all want you, and that's kind of the way to play the game, though, is that if you send them an email and you're like, hey, I want to do research, they're probably not even going to look at it twice, honestly, because they have so many students. And the sooner that you can get started building an actual relationship with them, the better the chance you're going to have of them bringing you onto their team.
And I would say the same thing with the creative projects as well. You want to develop those early relationships. So yeah, that was very good advice, Sarah. I think it was Sarah. Do you have anything else to add?
I'm done now. Sorry. That was a lot. Sorry.
No, I think that was good. I think getting started early, and depending on the major, it's more, some fields are more competitive. And so getting those and reading I like your advice about reading their journal articles before you go to the appointment. I think that's good advice. Other questions or comments about Eureka? So in terms of national scholarships, if you want to schedule an individual appointment with me, I will be around the summer. If you just want to play around with the website, my role is really just to help students figure out if there are good options for them, and that kind of thing. Susan, you've heard me talk a whole bunch. Is there anything you think I've forgotten? We can't hear you, Susan. That's okay. I do it too.
Sorry, I had it on mute. I said, no, I think you've got it all. The only thing Sarah asked about working on an essay over the summer, just make sure before you start your essay, you meet with Miss Clippard and are matched with something, because the prompts are different. So
yeah. I mean,
don't just start writing an essay.
Yeah, I mean, the biggest thing I usually tell students if they're going to apply for something is take that extra 30 minutes to an hour and read what they want, because you would not believe, I read a lot of essays, and I think Susan does read a lot of essays too in her role, but sometimes people don't even answer the question. And so if you can take that extra few minutes, figure out what they want, and try to incorporate that into your materials, you're going to be a lot stronger.
And then ask yourself, did I answer
the question?
Because you'd be amazed at how many times you don't do that.
And sometimes you don't realize it, but sometimes you don't think you're being generic, and you are. So when I read a lot of essays about study abroad, and people talk about, I want to study abroad, I want to learn about this country's rich history. Well, that's very generic, because every country has a rich history. So you kind of have to dig down into specifics about that country and why. So, well, I don't know if I have anything else to cover. I don't know if I missed anything in the chat.
I have one more question.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
That's okay.
So I know that you guys aren't into One Stop, of course, but most of us honor students probably have a lot of tuition funding already. So I'm wondering, by applying for the scholarships or fellowship or Eureka Grant, is it based off of basically your financial aid at MTSU? Like, can you be told no because
I can't answer directly. Dr. Burris would have to answer this, but I can tell you that somehow you're talking about some students are what they call over awarded. Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
And over awarded is a good problem to have, but then it makes it hard. So the Eureka somehow gets around that. And I don't exactly know how, but I think I would encourage you to email Dr. Burris directly and ask that question. My daughter got a Eureka Grant, and they were able to work with her because she was living at home at the time, and she didn't have a lot of expenses. So I'd talk to Dr. Burris. Some of the fellowships give you funding. Like if you apply for the National Science Foundation, they give you a stipend that does not go into your MTSU aid. So it's not everything goes to your MTSU aid. And as far as Eureka, I would just ask Dr. Burris.
Okay, thank you.
Who would you recommend to proofread personal statements for grad school? The Writing Center. I also think that faculty, I know faculty are busy, but I think if you as Sarah was talking about, develop that relationship with them, they're going to be really good at the content part of it. Occasionally, I will read essays for getting into medical school or for STEM research, and I don't know anything about the research. So it's better if you can have someone in your field do that. And again, the Writing Center, they make their writing tutors go through professional development classes. And so they are not just for students who, don't know where to put a comma. They're also for students that are trying to achieve. So I would recommend them as well. So I see the dean back there behind Susan. Hey, Dean Val.
Hello.
That's why I had to mask up.
I just wanted people to know, I think this
in
is
my
important.
space.
Yeah. We see his tie, don't we? There he is.
Yeah. Yeah. One of my unpublished books, but finished books, just waiting for someone.
Yeah.
Did you brag a little bit on the people that have already gotten awards this year?
I didn't give names because I don't know,
Okay.
but I mentioned that we had 2 people who have gotten the Fulbright, people who've gotten the CLS and the Goldwater, and we've got a bunch of students who got the REUs.
Absolutely.
So it is doable.
And they all know about the little set of plaques that we have down our hall.
I didn't cover that, did I?
Well, I mean, I don't know.
I
but
didn't
it's-
tell them about the plaques. If
Well,
you
I mean,
went
it's
and-
not a bad place. Second floor outside our office, you can go down and you can see a variety of different awards that MTSU students have won over the last 15 years or so.
Mhm.
And probably some we didn't know about before I became dean, but that's at least 12 or 13 years worth.
Mhm.
And almost every year it grows or it replicates the year before. So we're really proud of that. And one thing, I don't know if you've talked about it today, but I've noticed with a number of theses that I've read a few now that are publishable.
Mhm.
And I would always encourage students, if, sometimes I know, particularly in the sciences, it may require $150 or something, maybe a little bit more to get them published. But if it's a referee journal, that's something that we're always willing to help with. We believe strong, like study abroad and other initiatives in the Honors College, we believe very strongly in them.
Okay. Well, I think I'm looking at our time. I think we have time for 1 or 2 more questions. I don't exactly know what time the lecture series ends, but I think we're getting close to being.
We are.
Are there any last? Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I was just going to say, add to the question about proofreading papers or things for applications. One thing that has been super helpful in processes for me is that just think about who your audience is. And if you can find somebody that does that already, like if you're applying to graduate school, find somebody at MTSU that reviews graduate school applications in that field. And then take it to them and ask them, because they're the ones who are receiving those applications and approving them from other students from outside sources. So if you can find someone that matches up and does exactly the same thing as the person you're trying to apply that to, then they'll be able to help you like substantially.
Mhm. Yeah, and like I said, faculty, Writing Center are all great resources for students. So, well, Susan, are there any last minute announcements or housekeeping that you need to do?
Nope, there are not. Just let's see, next week we have ePortfolio. And I will tell you that my son just went through this process and it was actually very helpful for him to kind of really hone in on what he wants to do. So it's good, and I would pay attention if you can be here. And then to some of the others, you're getting close to absences, so watch your absences because he will count them. And that's it. So everybody have a good week, and we will see you next Monday. Thank
Okay,
you, Laura.
Have a good week.
Have
Thanks,
a
Laura.
good week.
Everybody's disappearing.
Yep. Okay, I'll see you tomorrow.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye.